Hey guys, and welcome to episode 3 of Hack the Coding Interview, where today's company of focus is going to be Microsoft. Once again, this is going to be brought to you by Region 3 NSBE. Who am I? So once again, my name is Esther Onema, and I'm a junior at the University of Central Florida. I'm majoring in computer science, and I'm currently the Region 3 Telecommunications Chair. Also listed are some of my past, present, and upcoming internships that I have all held as a software engineer intern. What is this series not? Okay, so this series is not a guaranteed set of questions that will be asked during your interviews. Seriously, these are just questions that have appeared in past interviews related to this specific company. Also, this video isn't a one and done tutorial. I need you guys to challenge yourself by going beyond these problems in order to become better prepared for your interview. But like always, at the end of each video, I'm going to provide you with additional practice problems. But once again, please also go beyond this video to get other problems you can practice with for your interviews. Also, this video is not sponsored. These tutorials are being provided to the membership 100% free of charge. Nobody's paying me to say this. I'm not lying to you guys and taking any money on the side for talking about these awesome companies. I'm just doing it because I like tech. So what is this series for? Coding in real-time approaches to essential interview questions, reviewing basic programming concepts for not only novice but also experienced programmers, where we're going to talk about stuff like algorithm analysis, data structures, and problem solving, and other CS related topics. This is also a great way to practice virtual paired programming, coding along with me. That's fun, and also you get better insight as to how another person would think and run through their code. And this series is also for relieving first-time interview jitters. We've all been there before. It's just a matter of getting over that hurdle. Materials needed for today's video. Okay, so you're going to use the IDE of your choice, whether that's CodeBlocks, IntelliJ, NetBeans. Personally, I like to use a text editor because it gives me a better understanding as to what exactly am I writing in my code. But just note that your interviews are most likely going to be held on a whiteboard with a dry erase marker, right? Or on a sheet of paper. Next thing is use a programming language of your choice. In today's video, we're going to be switching it up and using the C programming language, simply because Microsoft is a company that uses C, and also I've been in interviews with the company where they were like, I see you've taken an Intro to C course. Well, I want you to answer these questions using the C programming language, which is why the entire video is just going to be in C. So for you C lovers, you win. The third point is either have a smart TV with you, a smartphone, a projector screen, anything other than the current device you're watching this on to watch the video on. And I say this because I'm really emphasizing that I want you guys to have a computer with you and code along with me free of distraction. Last thing is have an optimistic mindset, drink water, put yourself in a productive environment, and pause this video whenever you start to feel as if you can't focus anymore or the concepts are getting a little bit too difficult to understand. Just pause it, walk away, and come back to it later. One more thing. In an interview, always talk out loud. Why? This allows recruiters to see how you approach and tackle issues. If you cannot understand the question being asked, request a test case, please, please, please. I like to say, okay, what are my input parameters? Am I taking in a string? Am I taking in an array of chars? Am I taking in an array list? Or what am I returning? Am I returning those things that I just mentioned? And restrictions, sometimes your interview may tell you, for this question that you're about to answer, don't use a hash map, don't use an array, don't use any additional data structure, just work with what you're given. So that's the thing too. If you cannot think of the optimal solution, please, please, please brute force it. One answer is better than no answer. And it's also important to let your interviewer know that you're brute forcing. Um, yeah, that's just something you should let your recruiter know so that at the end, if you have time, you can optimize your brute force code. But I can't really stress this enough that one answer is better than no answer. I've been in interviews, I've seen interviews where the candidate that was able to code a messy, sloppy solution got the job over the candidate that overthought their solution and ended up, writing nothing. Last thing is make a great impression. Leave all your nerves at the door. Come with a set of questions about the company, which means do your research. It makes you look good to your interviewers. And yeah, who doesn't want to look over prepared for an interview? So let's get started. Supplemental problems will be provided at the end of the video, so stay tuned for that. What is good, guys? Let us start our first and most important question. I must note that you must be able to solve this question in order to solve the second question. So let's go ahead and get this started. This is a very essential Microsoft question that will be coded in the C programming language. So, reverse word. Write a function that reverses a string. The input string is given as an array of characters, a condition being do not allocate extra space for another array. You must do this by modifying the input array in place with O of 1 extra memory. Once again, O of 1 extra memory is essentially no extra memory, so we're going to be working with what we're given to solve this question. Note, you may assume all the characters consist of printable ASCII characters. And let's just look at an example here where the input is the word, the char array word, hello, and then we just return an array of the same exact word, but in reverse, ole. An example two is the word Hannah, and the reverse of the string, of course, is Hannah again, except notice the casing remains the same as it appeared in the first array. So let's get started. As always, I've already pre-coded my main function because this is typically something that the recruiters aren't going to ask you to do. They're going to just say, just code the function that does what I'm asking you to code. So if you want to go ahead, pause the video, copy the structure of my functions, of my main and reverse string function, go ahead. But I'm going to go ahead and explain right now the overall format of what our function is going to take in and return. So our function is going to take in a character array, S, and it's going to return a character array, S. As always, we're going to start by commenting our code because I believe that it is easier to express and make sense of code when it is commented first. So first thing we're going to do is create a start variable that points to the start of the character array. And then we're going to create an end variable that points to the end of the character array. And then essentially our reverse string function, for those who already know where I'm headed, like the direction that I'm going in, it's just basically a swap function. So every swap function has a temp variable. So what we're also going to be doing is creating a temp character variable. This will serve as the safe house for swapping characters in array S. Then we're going to go ahead and create a while loop to ensure that the start variable does not run over the end variable. And once again, if you guys have no idea that is going on now, what is going on now, I'm going to further explain it as I actually code out the solution. But right now, once again, we're giving a story to the code. So while loop to ensure the start variable does not run over the end variable, and store the start variable, so s at start, in the temp variable, assign the end variable to start variable, and then assign the original start variable, temp, to the end variable, right? And then we're just going to increment start and decrement end. That was spelled so wrong. Probably wrong still, but whatever. And out of the while loop, remember our function asks us to return a character array. We're just going to return S. And that's it. So let's go ahead and start coding. So create our start variable. We're going to say int start is equivalent to 0. And just for clarification, let's just put this here for now. Let's say S is equivalent to H E L L O. So start is currently going to point to H in our string S, right? And then int end is going to be equal to the string length, right? String length of S minus 1, because string length is going to say our string hello is of length 5, right? But we know in programming, we always start counting from 0. So end is going to point to 4, which would point to O. So start points to H, end points to O, 0 and 4. And then let's just continue on with the coding. So we're going to create a temp character, and then a while loop to ensure the start variable does not run over the end variable. So start is less than end, right? Yeah. Because we never want the start integer to be greater than the ending integer. That means that at that point our pointers have crossed over each other, and we're looking at we're looking at characters that we've already looked at in the string. And let me put this here. Yep. So now we want to store the start variable in the temp variable. So temp equals s at start, right? Meaning h is going to go into temp, and then assign the end variable to the start variable. So s at start is going to become s at end, meaning that O right here is going to go to H. Now, some of you may be freaking out saying, oh no, you just deleted H, but no. Remember, we stored H in our temp variable here on line 39. And now we could say s at end is equivalent to temp, h. So at this point, we've swapped O to go where H is, and we have swapped H to go where O originally was. Next step is we just need to increment our pointers so that now start would point to E and O would point to L. So start increments and end decrements. Right, and now we're out of our for loop, our while loop, and we're just going to return s at the end. So return s. Awesome, awesome, awesome. Let's see if this works. And if you guys are still a little confused, I highly recommend that you pause the video, get out a sheet of paper, and using the little algorithm we coded out here, just run it through on a sheet of paper. So let's go ahead and test this. Okay, no errors, good, good. So the original word that we fed it was hello. We fed in the word hello, and then we're going to say the reverse word is blank, where we call our reverse string function, passing in the original word hello. So original word is hello, reverse word is ole. Awesome. So let's talk about runtime. That's the last thing that your your interviewer is probably going to ask you. And if they don't, I always like to throw it in because it once again shows my interviewer that I know what I'm talking about and I'm a confident programmer. And, all the things that I learned in my CS courses have paid off. The runtime is, as you guys have probably guessed by now, O of n, where n is equivalent to the length of the input string s. And the space complexity, this is a cheat, but remember we were told we could only use an O of 1 space complexity. So it is O of 1, our space complexity. We didn't create any additional data structure or, hash map or any other thing of that sort that would create additional memory to solve this problem. We used what we were given. So runtime is O of n, where n is equivalent to the length of s, and our space complexity is O of 1. Hey guys, and let's get started with the second question. Once again, you must know how the first question we solved works in order to solve this question because this question actually builds off of the first question. So, reverse word 2. Given a string, you need to reverse the order of characters in each word within a sentence while still preserving white space and initial word order. Note, in the string, each word is separated by a single space, and there will not be any extra space in the string. This may sound like a lot, but once we look at the example, you guys will have a clear understanding as to what this question is asking us. So given this input, let's bake a cake, right? We're just going to return let's bake a cake, but the interesting thing about this is each word, right, is reversed. Let's bake a cake. Pretty simple, straightforward. Let's get to coding. Once again, we're going to keep our reverse string function that we just coded, and we're actually going to be using it in our reverse words function. So our reverse words function is going to take in a character array titled words, and we're going to return a character array. So let's get to our commenting. So we're going to create a for loop variable, and we'll call it I. We're going to use this, of course, to traverse our for loop. And then we're also going to create a start of word variable. And then we're also going to, we're gonna, let's just fetch the length of the word. Now, in a for loop that goes through the entire char array of words, right? Here's what we're going to do. If words at I is equivalent to a space, or words at I is going to be equivalent to a end of string null character, right? Just signifying, look, we've reached the end of a string. Then we're going to call this function here, reverse string, passing in the index of the start of the word and the index of the end of the word. And of course, this is a huge run-on sentence, and the char array words. And this, of course, will once again be explained once the code is written out. We're just writing the story for our code right now. And then the other thing that we're going to want to do is update start of word variable to point to the index of the start of the next word we will be reversing. Okay, so then that's the only thing that's going to happen in that for loop. So once we're out of the for loop, what does our function ask us to do? It asks us to return the char array. And that's essentially it. So let's dive into the coding. So we need to create a for loop variable I. We need to create a start of word variable. Let's call it start of word index and set that equivalent to 0. I know this function name's pretty long, but for the simple purpose of you guys understanding what exactly my code is doing, I'd rather have long variable names than like vague ones. So then int length, array length is equivalent to the string length of words, right? And we're going to call our for loop. So for, in a for loop that goes through the entire character array, by the way, because yes, for I is equivalent to 0. Well, we already set that here, but just because I'm nitpicky, I'll get rid of that. I is less than or equal to array length and I plus plus, right? Oh wow, that's pretty. I didn't know. Okay, nerd moment there. So if words at I is equivalent to 0, is equivalent to a white space, or words at I is equivalent to a terminating string character. Yeah. And remember, the premise of the problem told us that there would only be one space. So yeah. Yep. So we're going to call reverse string. And this is the point where we're just going to modify reverse string. And it's a really, really simple fix. All we're going to do is, rather than declaring start and end, as you see here in our reverse string function, that's actually going to be passed in from the calling function. So we're going to pass in start and in end. Okay. So then we could just get rid of that. We could actually delete it, but comment it out to make things more understandable. And then we're also going to want to modify the function outline of the reverse string function. So int start, int end. Good, good, good. So let's code that, and I will explain why we want to pass in start and end rather than create our own start and end variables in reverse string. So we're going to pass in the index of the start of the word, so start of word index, and then the end of the word, the index of the end of the word, which is just going to be I minus 1, and then the entire character array itself we're going to be passing in. So words. What is going on here? You guys are probably wondering. By now we all understand what reverse string actually does and what start and end represent in our reverse string function itself. Although what is start and end, what is start of word index and I minus 1 represent in reverse words? Well, that's simple. Let's take this example here where we have an array that's hello space friend, right? So currently our start of word index has the value of 0, meaning start of word index starts at H. Now we also need to pass in the ending of the word index that we are analyzing. Now currently, remember, this is only firing off when we've encountered a space, which means at this point, words at I is at in this index right here where the space is. We don't want to reverse H to space. We want to reverse from H to O, which is why we're saying I minus 1, because I minus 1 is the index at where O is located. And then, of course, we're passing in the entire array itself. You get the gist of that. And that's essentially it. So then the last thing that we're going to do is update the start of word variable. So start of word index is going to be equivalent to I plus 1. Now remember here, when we fired off this like little, if statement, I is where the space is, right? Meaning right here in our array, this is currently where I is. We want the next string that we're going to be reversing, the next word that we're going to be reversing, we need the start of its index, and we always know it's going to be the index followed by where the space we just analyzed was, which would point to F. So all start of word index is saying is go from the current space we're at and take that index, and that is where our next word will begin. That's it. And then the pattern continues. So then once we're out of our for loop, also let me comment that out. Yep. And we want to return our character array. So we're then just going to return words. Great stuff. All right, let's test out our code. The first thing that we're going to do is test it with this character array right here, hello friend. We're going to call reverse words on hello friend and see what it prints out. Yep. So the original sentence is hello friend. The reverse words in the sentence is hello friend. Perfect. Let's try it with a longer example and see if that works. So I'm going to pass in the second array I have here, and it actually reads Queen Cersei will fall. I'm a huge Game of Thrones fan, so I just had to throw that in there. And let's clear and see if that works. So the original sentence is Queen Cersei will fall, and the reversed words in the sentence is Queen Cersei will fall. Awesome, awesome, awesome. We have running code, running and working code, might I add. So, you know the drill by now. Runtime. It's pretty straightforward. It's still O of n, where n is the length, this time of the sentence, or, this character array that you're passing it in here. And then the space complexity. Just like in part one, we didn't add any additional data structures. All of this was essentially done in place. For the most part, the reverse string portion of our function was done in place. So the space complexity is O of 1. Why? We didn't create any extra arrays or string builders to store our reversed sentence in. So there you have it. Runtime, O of n. Space complexity, O of 1. Reverse words. What is good, guys? So let's start with our last question and probably our most important question of the video. Create a stack using a linked list. This is going to be coded in C, so let's get right to it. So the basic functions of a stack are push, where you push a node onto a stack, pop, where you're removing the top of the stack from the stack itself and returning its value, as well as top returns the data found at the top of the stack and is empty, determines whether or not our current stack that we're working with is empty. So let's get right to it. So the first thing is we have our node outlined right here, where our node is going to consist of an integer representing the data and a pointer to another node representing the node that follows the current node. Pretty straightforward. So the first thing that we're going to want to do is work on our push function. So what does push do? It pushes a node onto the top of our stack. Remember, we're using a linked list. And whenever we're usually dealing with any kind of memory rearrangement, I always like to create a temporary node. So we're going to say node temp. Oop, that meant to be a star. And we want to allocate space so that we can store data appropriately into our temporary node. By that, I mean, we want to be able to call temp arrow data or temp arrow next, because as of now, calling those would return null. So temp equals malloc. That should be the size of node, where node is defined here in our struct. Now we want to add the value to our node. Remember, in our push function, only thing push is taking in is the value that we want to store inside of our node. So temp arrow data is equivalent to value. Awesome. So our node has a value. And then the previous top is going to be what follows the node we're currently pushing onto the stack. So what we're saying is, let's say we're trying to push the value 5 onto our stack, right? But currently the value 2 exists in our stack represented as a linked list. But remember, we're trying to push in the value 5. So what we're trying to say is, I'm trying to say that if I push 5, 5's next node, next pointer is going to point to the value 2. And what does that look like in code? It looks like this. So temp next is equivalent to top. That's it. Literally, that's it. And then now we just want to make temp the official new top of our stack. So then top is equivalent to temp. So now our linked list, assuming that 2 is already added to it, to our linked list represented as our stack represented as a linked list, it would look like this: 5, 2, no. Okay. So next function is pop. What does pop do? Well, what does it do? It removes the top from the stack and it returns its data value. So once again, we're dealing with memory, right? So we're going to have to create a temporary node of some sort. So node start temp. And then remember, we're also returning a data value. So we're going to also create an int temp val. And we're going to take the value of the top and put it into temp. Because remember, when we're popping, not only are we returning the value that is stored at the top of our linked list, so let's say we're calling pop on this linked list. We're going to be popping 5 and we're also going to be removing 5. So let's take the value of it. Temp equals top for now. And now we're going to pull the value of temp into our temporary int variable top. Easy. So all we're saying is I'm going to get the value 5. So temp val equals temp data. And that's going to return 5 because top is currently being stored at temp. And then the next thing is make the node that follows top the new top of the stack, which means it should be top next. So what we're saying is if we're looking at this linked list here and we're popping 5, which means we're also deleting 5, we want to make 2 the next top of our stack because 5 is no longer going to be the top. So top next, which is 2, is going to go into top. Now, at this point, even though this is still top, 5 still exists. The node containing 5 still exists, even though 2 is the top. So in order to just get rid of 5 entirely, we're going to free it. So we're going to say free temp. So now our linked list is just going to look like this: 2, null, where 2 is now the top of our stack. And the last thing is we want to return the value of our old top. Oh, and remember we stored it here in a temporary value. So we're just going to say return temp val. And then last thing that we're going to want to do is do our top function. And all this does is returns the data found at the top of the stack without deleting the node. So it's essentially top is pop, except you're not deleting the top node and replacing it with the next node as we had done here. We're just simply returning the value found at the top of the stack. So we would just say return top data. That is literally all we're doing. We are not deleting any nodes. And then next is we're determining whether or not the top of the stack is null, meaning our stack is empty, no nodes are found in it. We're going to say return top equals null. And as you could see, I created some static variables up here. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Given an input string, reverse the string word by word. So let's say we're given the string the sky is blue, right? We're just going to be returning blue is sky the. We're just reversing the order of the words rather than reversing, as you saw in problem 1, the individual string. And then in problem 2, we had said, okay, we're keeping the same order of the words, but just reversing its contents. We're building off of problems 1 and 2, essentially, in this question. And the same repeats for the 2 other examples with mention as to what to do regarding certain white space issues. And at the bottom here, you could see we have the format of our function. We're given an array of characters, or for you Java lovers, a string, and we're returning a string array of characters in the C programming language. Supplemental problem number 2. Okay, so given an array of integers, find if the array contains any duplicates. I have seen this problem or a rendition of this problem somewhere before. Your function should return true if any value appears at least twice in the array, and it should return false if every element is distinct. Okay, I remember where I saw this or a rendition of this problem before. It was in video 1. So for those of you that have been following the series since episode 1, you should be able to get this fairly quickly. If not, watch video 1 and then think to yourself, how would I solve this using one array? And as you could see, the structure of the method itself contains duplicate. Is just you're given an array of numbers as well as the length of the array. You could that could be easily calculated though in Java. But yeah, it's helpful that they give it to you. And then you're just returning a Boolean true or false, indicating whether or not the given array contains duplicates. Straightforward. This is different. All right, so can you explain the difference between a method and a function? Can you? And there we have it for video 3. I highly, highly, highly recommend, if you guys haven't caught up with the past 2 videos, do that when you have time. These problems get easier with more practice.